Namaste. We've been talking about the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And you know, the difficulty with giving television programs as opposed to writing is that when I make a mistake, I can just cross it out and rewrite it. But when I make a mistake on television, sometimes I can't correct it. But I made a big one yesterday. I said that you can fall from nirvikalpa samadhi. What I meant was, you can fall from sabikalpa samadhi. Once you reach nirvikalpa, you're completely free. You have no ego. And the only thing then you have, you're a jivan mukta, all you have is your recollection of past misdeeds, past bad karmas that you have to overcome. Not only bad karma, you have to get rid of all karma. Because anything that is karma relates to the ego. You have to release all your past memories into the divine and say it was God who acted through those parts. And so, those who have mastered their thoughts, escape the confines of the mind, and become engrossed in cosmic wisdom, they, realizing the illusory nature of the ego, become freed from the chains of rebirth and attain that state which transcends all suffering. All suffering belongs to the ego. You feel that it's I who am suffering. It feels that I am enjoying. As long as you have this ego, then you get caught in Maya. But a jivan mukta who is free from all bondage of ego, he knows that these things are happening, but they don't happen to him. And people try to attack him, like that yogi that Alexander sent to, and he threatened that if he didn't come, he would take his head. The yogi said, take it doesn't matter to me. You no longer care what happens to your body. You no longer care what happens to you, because you know that the end of everything will be bliss, and you live in that bliss. Thus it is that the senses, the turbulent senses, are the things that we need to overcome. The thought that I'm enjoying this light, I'm enjoying this sight, I'm enjoying this sound, I'm enjoying this, I'm enjoying that. These come to us through the senses. We have to go above the senses and realize that the bliss of spirit is beyond them. The senses are of the body. We must go beyond those sense telephones, as my guru called them, and realize that the soul is untouched by anything outside. The soul is in its kutastha chaitanya level of realization. It is a reflection of the spirit beyond creation, the reflection of Brahman in creation. And in that state, you are completely free in yourself. The goal of yoga is to merge in the infinite, and in that state to realize that God is you. You cannot say, I am God. That would be wrong, because that would be saying that the little wave of manifestation is the whole ocean. That's not true. Any yogi who says, I am God, is speaking an untruth. But you can say, I am the wave. He is the ocean. He is me. He is my little wave of manifestation. This you can say. And you can go on to say that that wave of manifestation is He. One time Yogananda came to this saint. He was a boy at that time. And the saint saw his great humility and devotion. So he, in front of all his disciples, he said, I am God. My guru leapt to his feet. He showed him a mirror. He said, you don't say so. This isn't the God I'm looking for. And he walked out in great indignation. Well, the saint came running after him and prostrated himself. He said, thank you. You've awakened me from a great delusion. And he had the humility to do this and to apologize in front of all his devotees. But Yogananda answered him. His name was Mukunda then. And he answered him and said that it is not right to say the wave is the ocean, but you can say the ocean has become all of its waves. So you can't say I am God, but you can say God has become this little being. That is true. And when you reach that state, that is what you will be. It seems so impossible to believe right now. I mean, here you are wanting things and getting angry with people and being afraid of this and hungry for that and so on and so on. This is not you. You are just a bundle of self-definitions as long as you live in this little ego. And once you've understood that those definitions are not you, you shed that bundle and you become a Jivan Mukta. In that state, once you've reached that state, in Sabikalpa, as I said, you still come back to the ego. Once you've gone beyond the ego and realized that he is you, and he is the only reality there is, then you become completely free forever. A Jivan Mukta, I've said this before, it's well to keep in mind, because this is a state you can aspire to in this life. Can you attain complete freedom? That may take some time. But you can become a Jivan Mukta and work for it, because you have that right. You are a child of God. You are not a child of Maya. You're not a child of delusion. And if you really can persuade yourself that everything that you are is really He doing it through you, this is why I say the main thing on the spiritual path is to get rid of this sense of ego. When you eat, feel that He is eating through you. When you walk, feel that He is walking through you. When you get angry, which is moha, it's a delusion, but tell yourself He is angry through me, and then you can release it more easily into Him. You know, God likes it when we give Him the blame as well as the credit. It seems like an odd thing to say, but it's the truth. He likes it because then He can come in and purify us. Then He has the power to come in and change our consciousness if we let Him do it all. But like that time when I was in church and I remembered that my guru had said that we must, when lecturing, feel that God is talking through us. And so I said, well, all right, let me stop talking and let Him talk. Well, it doesn't happen that way. And I stood there for 2 minutes, not speaking, perfectly comfortable. But people were afraid that I'd become nervous and frozen in my fear. No, I was just experimenting. But I decided after 2 minutes of silence that God was not going to say anything. So I realized then what my guru had said, I will reason, I will, I will act, but guide thou my reason, will, and activity to the right path in everything. And so your senses are a disturbance to you. But if you can go beyond the senses, and if you can keep that thought constantly, He is doing everything through me, give everything to Him. Nishkama karma means not only give the fruits of that action to God, but feel that He is the one doing that action. You're not involved. You will find in this state of inner freedom, then you can attain Jivan Mukta, Jivan Mukti. You attain freedom in yourself. So, where are we? He who, having subjugated his senses, becomes united with me, remains engrossed in the infinite self, knowing it is the supremely relishable, rasha, completely the best thing. If you want to overcome, I've said this also before, if you want to overcome a taste for bad cheese, seek good cheese. You find that yourself, you become then, you find this supremely relishable. God is more wonderful than anything you could ever experience in this world. And when you have Him, you have everything, than which there is nothing more to be attained, as Krishna says. Only mastery of the senses can bestow the steadfastness of true wisdom. Dwelling mentally, this is 62 and 63, dwelling mentally on sense objects breeds attachment to them. From attachment arises craving. From craving, when frustrated, springs anger. Anger produces delusion. Delusion causes forgetfulness of the self. Loss of memory as to what one is in truth causes decay of the power of discrimination. From loss of discrimination ensues the annihilation of all right understanding. This is a very interesting passage of the Gita. It shows the path downward. Dwelling mentally on sense objects breeds attachment to them. You think of a good meal, And then you begin to think, well, that would be very nice to have such a good meal. In fact, I'd love to have this good meal. In fact, I want to have this good meal. From attachment arises craving. And then, what is anger? Krodha. It comes when your desires are frustrated. And so you find that when your craving is frustrated, then you become angry. And anger always confuses the mind. So anger, Krishna says, produces delusion. And that delusion makes it impossible for you to understand what is true and not. And so delusion causes forgetfulness of the self, loss of memory as to what one is in truth, causes decay of the power of discrimination, and you no longer know what is right. You're just absolutely bewildered. From loss of discrimination ensues the annihilation of all right understanding. Now, it's an interesting thing to trace this thing backward, too. You have the annihilation of all right understanding. Well, how do you get that right understanding? Simply this way. Compare what the results will be. This is a good teaching of science. See the results. If you have the right understanding, you will be more peaceful and more happy and more fulfilled. If your understanding is wrong, then it takes you away from that and you feel more and more unhappy. So this is the climb back of that downward ladder that Krishna has described to us. And it's well worth keeping in mind. Because from right understanding then begins to dawn discrimination. You know it's wrong because it's making you suffer. You know it's right because it's giving you contentment and happiness. And so with that, you remember the times that you have been unhappy, and you decide that I'd better live in such a way as to do the right things that will make me happy. And so where Krishna says downwardly, loss of memory causes decay of the power of discrimination, this begins to bring memory back, and that regains your discrimination. Anger, delusion causes forgetfulness of the self. But the more you feel this bliss of yourself, the more you are out of that delusion, because you know this is the only thing that works for you. And then when you are in this peace and contentment in the self, then you no longer can get angry. You get angry because things don't go the way you want them to. If you don't care how they go, then you no longer get angry. And so Krishna says, be absolutely impervious to whether things are the way you like them or don't like them. Don't care. And if people insult you, thank them. Don't get upset about it. Don't feel that you have to defend yourself. Actually, it's a very good practice to thank people when they insult you, because they help you to understand what you really are. And so with all the different things that awaken anger in a person, of which they are legion, if you can really accept everything that comes, acceptance is one of the greatest virtues. Santosha, contentment, is something that comes with acceptance. You no longer worry whether you've got a job or don't have a job. You know that everything will work out all right. The wonderful thing is that whereas you can't control whether you have a job or not, that depends on whoever hires you. But if you have that peace inside yourself, you will have some kind of magnetism that will make people want to give you that job. And so nothing will disturb you and everything begin to become right. You will no longer have anger, which produces delusion. You will be peaceful under all circumstances. And then from that anger, from craving when frustrated springs anger. So when you've got what you want, you don't crave anything. When you have the job that you want, you don't crave a job. When you have the money you need, you don't crave money. But from craving, these things go back to delusion. But if you don't crave anything, you don't get happy, you don't get unhappy. And it's a very good practice. In fact, Yudhishthira in the Mahabharata says that Santosha is the greatest virtue. So that whatever happens, you accept it. You're calm, you're peaceful. You find that in that peace, you begin to develop divine consciousness. Because from attachment springs craving, but from freedom from craving, you no longer feel attached to anything. You have everything you need right now. And then, when that craving goes and you no longer have any attachments, then you don't dwell anymore on sense objects. So naturally you become freed of these sense objects. And the goal of spiritual endeavor is to not have those desires for things, for the senses which pull you into the world. You no longer care even if you have food to eat or don't eat, because you know somehow you'll be taken care of. It would be a very great test to be starving and find that you don't have food. But God will take care of you. And attachment, there's a wonderful story about a yogi who was married. And he wanted to give his life to God. And he said that in spite of my marriage, if ever I hear your call to come to you, I will leave everything and go to the Himalayas. And one day, his wife gave birth to a little baby, and his wife died. And the baby was crying for milk, crying for food. And then suddenly this man heard the voice of God saying, "My beloved, come to the mountains and worship me." And delusion's very strong. And he said, "God, I have the faith to want to come, but please give me understanding. I want to know that this baby will be taken care of." And just then, the Maharani of the area stopped because she heard this baby crying and went into the hut and found this baby and said, "Oh, and it's abandoned, I'll take it and make it my own child." And then this saint understood that God does take care of his own. He will take care of me. And then he was free to go to the Himalayas. But remember, these sense objects that keep you so engrossed, this death of this little baby, to abandon it seems like a terrible thing to do. If you give yourself to God, He will take care of you. No, Arjuna, my devotee is never lost. Joy to you.